If you have been following the news recently, you would have seen that Rwanda has confirmed an outbreak of Marburg virus disease. So far, 11 people have died from this disease. Although this disease is not new, it is the first time that an outbreak has been reported in Rwanda, and it raises some important questions. What is Marburg virus disease? Where does it come from? And how can people protect themselves? Let's explore more. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bite Sized Science you can sink your teeth into. I'm your host, Dr. Mariëtte van der Walt, and today we're exploring the link between bats and the Marburg virus. Today's illustrations feature the Egyptian fruit bat, and that's the species we're interested in for this story. Let's explore more. Marburg is known as a filovirus. Filoviruses are known as single-stranded negative sense RNA viruses, and they're characterized by a thread-like or a filamentous appearance when viewed under the microscope. Filoviruses are the family of viruses that include Ebola. So both of those viruses are similar, they cause similar diseases, and they're very deadly. Over the years, previous Marburg outbreaks have been reported from other African countries, which include DRC, Angola, Uganda, Kenya, Guinea, and now Rwanda. Where did these outbreaks come from? The virus comes from the Egyptian fruit bat, scientific name Rosetus egyptiacus. We can say that these bats are the natural hosts of these viruses. These bats live in large colonies inside caves and abandoned mines throughout Africa. But how does the virus spread from the bats to humans? The answer to that question lies in what the bats eat, and that, of course, is fruit. So when fruit bats eat fruit, they will take bites out of different fruits to test whether the fruit is ripe. When they find one that they like, they will take a bite out of it and chew the fruit until they've extracted all of the juices. The rest of the pulp they will spit out, and this pulpy spit is known as fruit spat. They will also fight with other fruit bats, and in these fights they will drop their half-eaten fruits on the floor. So both the half-eaten fruits and the fruit bats end up underneath the tree. About 25% of fruit that fruit bats eat would be discarded this way. And these discarded fruits may contain saliva from the bats, and this saliva can contain the Marburg virus. People can then be directly exposed to the virus by eating the discarded fruit or fruit bat, or by coming into contact with the urine or droppings from the bats that have been roosting in the fruiting trees. People can then also be indirectly exposed to the virus by coming into contact with domestic animals that may have eaten the fruit, or wild animals like monkeys and baboons, or by eating wild animal products like bushmeat. Once the virus then jumps from its animal hosts to humans, it can spread to other people through contact with the infected person's body fluids like blood or saliva, or by touching contaminated items, like the clothing that the sick person was wearing or the bedding that they were sleeping on. So what happens to a person when they contract Marburg virus disease? Marburg virus disease causes severe hemorrhagic fever, very similar to the effects that Ebola has on a person. Scientists say that Marburg virus disease can be classified into three main stages. The disease starts with the generalization phase, days 1 to 4, and it starts with flu-like symptoms like a high fever, body aches, and general fatigue. Patients may also experience things like muscle aches, nausea, diarrhea, and a rash. The next stage of the disease is the early organ phase, and that lasts from days 5 until 13 approximately. The patient still has a fever, and then new symptoms start to appear, like neurological symptoms where the patient starts to become confused. They also show hemorrhagic symptoms like external and internal bleeding, and damage to the liver and kidneys start to appear. In the last stage of the disease, which is from day 14 onwards, a patient can either experience the late organ phase or the recovery phase. If a person dies in the final phase, it's often because of multiple organ failure. Survivors of the disease experience persistent and long-term neurological issues. The World Health Organization tells us that the average fatality rate for Marburg virus disease is 50%, but case fatality rate may vary anywhere between 24% to 88%, and that really depends on the strain of the virus, and what type of care the person receives. Currently, there are no vaccines or antiviral treatments available for Marburg virus disease, although in 2020 the European Union did approve a vaccine for Ebola, which is very similar to Marburg virus but has never been tested for efficacy against this disease. This vaccine will now be trialled amongst health workers in Rwanda for the first time. For the most part, treatment of this disease is mostly supportive, making sure that the patient stays hydrated through oral and intravenous fluids, and managing other symptoms and pain. Diagnosing Marburg virus disease is also really challenging because the symptoms are so similar to other diseases from the region, which include malaria, Ebola, Lassa fever, dengue fever, and typhoid fever. In order to accurately diagnose Marburg virus disease, a specialized laboratory test is used, and this includes a PCR, or a polymerase chain reaction test, or a specialized test known as a immunoglobulin M ELISA test. So how can people protect themselves from this virus? It's really important to avoid bat-inhabited areas like caves. People without specialist training or specialized equipment should not be entering caves, and people who do, like researchers, will wear specialized equipment that protect them from the virus. Healthcare workers in outbreak settings will also be wearing protective gear to protect themselves from contracting the virus. Practicing good hygiene, like washing your hands often, is also a good way to prevent the spread of the virus. You should never eat or drink anything that you think might have come into contact with bats, especially the discarded fruits underneath the trees. You should also not be feeding those discarded fruits or fruit pulp to your livestock or domestic animals. Don't try to save fruits that have been partially eaten by cutting away the piece that has a bite mark on it, because the rest of the fruit might already be infected with the virus. Killing bats to try and stop the disease is also not the answer, because not only is this counterproductive to the conservation of bats, but it could also expose hunters to the pathogens where they wouldn't have previously been exposed to it, and in this way it could actually increase the spread of the disease. Because of this, it's best not to hunt or kill bats. Preventing Marburg virus disease outbreaks really requires a community effort by protecting bat habitats, by educating the communities most at risk, by enhancing rapid disease detection and surveillance, and by ensuring a rapid response when an outbreak does occur. This can limit the spread and risk of a disease outbreak. The Marburg virus is dangerous, but by understanding where it comes from and how we can protect ourselves, we can protect our communities and prevent the spread of this deadly disease. I'll drop some links in the description below for more tips about living safely with bats, which is available in several different languages, and to link you to the World Health Organization's website for more information about Marburg virus disease. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please give it a like and do subscribe to the channel for more future bite-sized science insights. Until next time!